and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
The morning of January 28, 1986, began like so many others at Cape Canaveral, calm on the surface, charged underneath. Millions of people were watching. School classrooms were tuned in. Families gathered around televisions. The Space Shuttle Challenger was supposed to be routine, almost casual by NASA standards. A teacher was on board. This was meant to feel safe, familiar, ordinary. And inside the cockpit, it did. Because when you read the official transcript of the crew's final moments, what strikes you first isn't fear. It isn't panic. It's how normal everything sounds. 2 minutes before launch, the recorder clicks on automatically.
We have a report from the flight dynamics officer that the vehicle has exploded.
You hear voices adjusting straps, passing small items back and forth, joking lightly. Judith Resnick asks for something back, calls it her security blanket, half joking, half habit. It's the kind of comment that never makes headlines, but it matters. It tells you these are people settling into a process they've trained for endlessly. They are calm. They are comfortable. They trust the machine around them. Commander Dick Scobie announces the countdown milestones as if he's reading the time off a wall clock. 2 minutes. 1 minute. 30 seconds. His tone never changes. Michael Smith, the pilot, calls out technical confirmations, liquid oxygen arms retracting, pressure stabilizing. Ellison Onizuka makes an observation about a piece of hardware moving the wrong way, then laughs it off when he realizes his view was blocked. There's laughter in the cockpit. Real laughter. Not nervous laughter. Familiar laughter. The kind you hear from people who've done this together before. This matters because it destroys the myth that astronauts had somehow sensed disaster before it happens. They didn't. Not this time. At 15 seconds, Scobie counts down. At 6 seconds, he says, "There they go, guys," as the main engines ignite. Judith Resnick responds with a soft, satisfied, "All right." The shuttle hasn't moved yet. This is still the controlled part, still the part that always goes right. Then the clock hits 0. "All right," Resnick says again, stretching the word. Michael Smith follows with, "Here we go." And that's the moment Challenger leaves the ground. The first few seconds are textbook. Challenger rolls onto its program trajectory. Scobie calls Houston to announce the roll program. Smith, riding the acceleration, lets out a burst of excitement. "Go you mother." It's raw, human. It's the sound of someone feeling the power of millions of pounds of thrust beneath them. Judith Resnick mutters something under her breath about heat. Scobie replies with a long, calm, "Okay." The kind of response you give when everything feels intense but manageable. They are flying. At around 20 seconds, Smith comments on the wind. Scobie agrees. It's bumpy, but within expected limits. At 28 seconds, Smith reports altitude and speed. 10,000 feet. Half Mach. Everything is exactly where it should be. This is the cruelest part of the transcript, because nothing in their voices suggests anything is wrong. At 35 seconds, Scobie reports velocity approaching Mach 0.9. At 40 seconds, Smith announces Mach 1. Supersonic. Challenger punches through the sound barrier. At 43 seconds, Scobie says they're throttling down, which is standard procedure as the shuttle passes through maximum aerodynamic pressure. This is not an emergency. This is not improvisation. This is the flight plan. At 57 seconds, Scobie calls throttle up. The engines roar back to full power. Smith echoes the call. Throttle up. "Roger," Scobie replies. At 60 seconds, Smith says, "Feel that mother go." Someone whoops. Pure adrenaline, pure joy. They're climbing faster now, higher, stronger. The hardest part of ascent is behind them. At 62 seconds, Smith reports altitude and speed again. 35,000 feet. Mach 1.5. At 65 seconds, Scobie checks Envis' airspeed reading. Smith confirms it matches his own. Everything is still normal. Then at 73 seconds into flight, Michael Smith says one word. Uh-oh. That's it. There is no scream, no warning, no frantic call to Houston, no time. The data cuts out instantly. For years, people asked whether the crew knew what was happening, whether they felt fear, whether they had time to react. The transcript answers that question in the most unsettling way possible. They did not know. Not really. Whatever Smith saw in that final second was only enough to register surprise, not understanding. What happened outside the cockpit was already unstoppable. A flame had been burning at the base of the right solid rocket booster since liftoff, caused by a failed O-ring seal hardened by the freezing temperatures that morning. Engineers had warned about this exact scenario. Management had waved it through. The flame ate through the booster joint, pierced the external fuel tank, and ignited a massive cloud of liquid hydrogen and oxygen. Challenger did not explode in the way most people imagine. It was torn apart by aerodynamic forces in a fraction of a second. The orbiter broke up at nearly Mach 2. Inside the cockpit, the crew cabin did not immediately disintegrate. It remained largely intact for several seconds, arcing upward, then falling back toward the Atlantic Ocean. There is evidence the cabin remained pressurized for at least part of the descent. Some switches were found in positions that suggest at least one astronaut regained consciousness after the breakup. But there was nothing they could do. No parachutes, no escape system, no way out. The cabin hit the ocean at over 200 miles per hour. When NASA released the transcript months later, it shocked the public not because of what it revealed, but because of what it didn't. There was no chaos, no dramatic final speech, no heroic last stand, just professionals doing their jobs, trusting the system until the system betrayed them. That's why this transcript matters. It strips away the mythology and leaves you with reality. 7 people went to work that morning expecting to come home. They joked, they laughed, they monitored gauges and switches and wind speeds. They felt excitement, not dread. Their final words were not poetic, they were ordinary. And that's what makes them devastating. Here we go. Feel that mother go. Uh-oh. Those words live forever now, frozen in time. Etched into history not because they were meant to be, but because technology failed, communication failed, and decision-making failed long before the crew ever strapped in. The Challenger disaster wasn't caused by bad luck. It wasn't caused by nature. It was caused by ignored warnings, institutional pressure, and the dangerous belief that past success guarantees future safety. The transcript is proof that by the time danger reached the cockpit, it was already too late. The crew never had a chance. And maybe the hardest truth buried in those final moments is this. If Challenger had launched 1,000 times under the same conditions, the crew would have sounded exactly the same every time. Calm, confident, alive. Until the second they weren't. That's the real lesson hidden inside the official transcript. Space doesn't announce its punishments. It doesn't give speeches or second chances. It waits patiently for one small failure, then takes everything in silence. And the last sound it leaves behind isn't an explosion. It's a voice saying, uh-oh,